like as a woman. Like that's not how it works. To me, it's not an identity, it's an experience.
Arielle, how are you? But thank you for making the time here today. You're in Australia right now, correct?
Yeah, I was invited here for Mardi Gras.
Mardi Gras in Australia. Is there a big Mardi Gras? They have a lot of beads?
I don't know. It's like considered like the LGBT pride here, I guess. So they invited me to do a panel.
Appropriation.
Wow.
Yeah, right?
But that's not gay at all. Mardi Gras is usually straight women showing their breasts for beads.
I know, in America, but who the hell knows here? I don't know. Which I like both, right?
Yes,
but,
yes, exactly. Two of your favorite
of
things. It is breasts and cheap costume jewelry.
But yeah, they invited me out here to do a panel, and there was, believe it or not, I think female-to-male drag queen that made a petition on change.org to get me taken off of the Mardi Gras website because, quote, I'm a transphobe and a horrible person and a TERF and all these things. And I was going to post the video of mine that went viral on Twitter anyway, and it just made me want to post it even more.
Yes.
For people trying to deplatform a, quote, basic lesbian, right? Everybody's got to be all these other identities now to be able to speak. But
well, I don't even have that.
You're just a lesbian. If you're just a lesbian, you're not allowed to talk about things.
I'm the basic bitch of the male world, and that I am just a white American mutt. And you just recently did a video entitled I'm a lesbian and I'm leaving the insane progressive left. Give a little briefer for people who maybe aren't necessarily super familiar with you, which could be a significant portion of the show.
I've been making videos, LGBT. I'm like an OG lesbian YouTuber. I've been making videos on YouTube literally for 10 years, like since 2009. I was like the second wave of people that were started making content on YouTube. And I never ever got hate from straight people until recently. You know, people that I think, you know, are just mentally unwell, that are now, you know, co-opting the identity of being queer just for like oppression points or because they like dressing differently. And believe it or not, those are the people that I get the most hate from. Not actual lesbians, not actual transgender women, unless they're like older. Sometimes the older trans women, you know, have entitlement issues. I'm
not familiar with
it's like a whole other thing.
It's a thing.
You had never really encountered any before you went to the leaving the left, which we'll get to politically. But you said you hadn't really encountered straight people hating you. Now, what do you mean by that? Because typically, in my experience, straight men tend to be fans of lesbians or movie lesbians. The idea of lesbians.
Yeah, I honestly very, very rarely get an actual creepy older or creepy straight guy on my page.
Okay.
Like the most they'll say is like, "Oh, you look hot." Like I'm a lesbian too, and I'm like, "Shut up!" Like you're an idiot. But I joke back with them, you know, and I troll them back, and like that's it. And they appreciate that. I know how to deal with them. And they've always been nice. Like I think a lot of the straight guys that watch me because they want to learn more about women.
Right.
Because my channel's not just about lesbians; it's about women. It's about how to please women, how to talk to women, how to date women.
And do you feel like you have an inside skinny on that because you are because you like women, but you're also a woman, so you can?
Oh my God, yeah. Oh yeah, we know best. That's the truth. You can't get better than someone that has the same equipment as you because you both know how to use it. Like
yeah, it seems like an unfair advantage.
Yeah, it is. Oh yeah, it is. But I mean, we're both women are crazy, so is it really an advantage? I don't know.
Yeah.
Because I want to get to a few of the specific comments that you made and sort of be hopefully enlightened and informed by you. But was there? You did this video. You're coming out, leaving the progressive left, the crazy left. Was there a specific moment, like a flash of genius? Because like you said, you've been an LGBTQ sort of centric creator for a good long while here. But did you ever have a flash where you said, all right, this has gone too far?
Oh yeah. When people started telling me that it was transphobic for me to say that I like vaginas and boobs.
How is that transphobic?
It's not.
They said this was transphobic. Let me ask this: what was their justification in saying that you, basically expressing what every lesbian has since the women's liberation movement? What would you? Let's play devil's advocate here. What do you think they would argue was transphobic about your stance?
I know what they say. They say that it's transphobic because you're reducing women to their genitals. That's their basic thing, and that you're saying trans women aren't real women if you don't find them attractive. And my answer to that, which was the PC, but also a very real answer, was lesbians don't find every type of woman attractive.
Yes.
Or every woman attractive?
This is just me being a straight white male and my privilege speaking.
Yeah,
I've never understood where it's like, hey, I'm attracted to the feminine form and I'm rejecting this sort of utilitarian body type that is the man. So now I like women who look like men.
Well, I think I don't like that, but my understanding is when they take their clothes off, they're still female.
True.
That's really what it comes down to.
Yes. When this show was on radio, it was syndicated, and I was based out of Detroit, one of the first conversations that I had, or the first debates in the show, I wanted to moderate because I didn't want to step into it, but there was a lesbian woman. Her name was Cynthia Yaki, and she was a conservative lesbian woman, actually, who'd caught a lot of flack. And we got into a big fight, Cynthia Yaki, and this is how we became friends, because we talked about gay marriage. And I remember she got upset because I said, well, I'm not pro-gay marriage. She said, what? And she freaked out. I said, hold on a second. I think that the government should be out of the marriage running business. It should be civil unions, and then churches can recognize marriage. That way you have all of the same equal rights, but you don't run into the complications of, for example, a pastor violating the law by saying, I refuse to marry 2 men or 2 women. And she said, correct. Oh, okay, I understand it. It's to try and honor the institution, but also all people have equal rights, that you think they should be separate. I said, yes. And then she became a friend. And then she brought to my attention, at this point, this was many years ago, trans women in women-only spaces, and how there was actually kind of a little bit of a rift between more traditional lesbians. And that became a knockdown, drag-out brawl on our show. And for me, was a real awakening. It seems to me like this is like the Jets and the Sharks. You guys have been going at it for a while.
Yeah, I think again, like, it depends on the situation. I don't think, like, for me, any trans woman that makes an attempt at looking female, you know, whether that's just dressing or you know, they go on hormones or they have breasts or something, I would treat them as a woman. Like, but if somebody identifies as a trans woman and looks like you, yes, they're still a trans woman, but you can't expect the world, like, if you have gender dysphoria, you have it. Like, you can't get rid of it. But you can't expect the world to treat you, you know, like, as a woman. Like, that's not how it works. To me, it's not an identity, it's an experience.
Right.
You can't walk throughout the world looking like a man and expect to experience it as a woman. Like, that's not how it works.
Right.
You know, people can't see inside your head. And a lot of some trans women, a lot of trans women are very understanding. I have a lot of friends that are like, listen, like, I don't think I belong in sports. Look at me. Like, I shouldn't be in female sports. I took till I was 40 to transition.
Yeah.
Like, and they get it. But now, you know, because for the sake of being woke, we have, you know, anybody that identifies as a woman, they're being, you know, transferred to women's prisons. You know, the two young trans women, the 2 black, I think they're black girls in Connecticut, you know, are competing in female sports. They haven't transitioned at all.
Though it's a hilarious snapshot. It is a hilarious snapshot. Just a picture of 2 trans women crossing the finish line, and then like yards behind them, women just struggling with all their might. It's not even close.
Yeah, it's like it's okay to recognize the biological differences that we have with them. Like, yeah, we mentally, like, in some way we're not sure yet, that like our brains could be similar, but that doesn't negate that our bodies are not. You know, like, there's it's not gender segregated. Sports are sex segregated for a reason. It has nothing to do with being trans. People say it's transphobic. It would be transphobic if you didn't let trans women that weren't transitioned in any way, if you didn't let them compete in the male division, then they're not allowed to compete because they're trans.
Right,
well, no, they are.
How do you like, what's your political leaning now? How would you describe it?
I don't even know. I disagree a lot. I disagree a lot with a lot of the Democrats these days, but I'm not, like, I wouldn't consider myself a Republican. Right. Because I still have some progressive beliefs. I don't know what my political affiliation is at the moment because I don't follow it close enough, and I don't actually... It's not like I just read headlines and believe everything they say. If I'm gonna support somebody, I'm gonna look deep into what what they're preaching or what they say they're gonna do. And I don't currently have the time for that. I travel a lot and I work a lot. But again, like, I'm pro-choice. You know, I'm obviously pro-LGBT rights. That was going to be my next question, was what is it that you see yourself not lining up with sort of Republicans on? Like, where would you see sort of the big sort of divergence? I think probably just women's rights, maybe, like what I would consider women's rights to be. Like, I guess. Just, I know a lot of people are not pro-choice. Yes. From what I understand on that side, which I understand their point, and I understand where they come from because I watched your video on that. But I obviously, like, it's sure. No, and I'm not expecting you to agree with me, by the way. You can come on and call me a dick. People do it on my show all the time. You mentioned too in your video
a pecking order, right? And specifically with the LGBT, like who's allowed to speak. I think you said something like who is allowed to speak and for how long. Can you explain what that is to people who may not know?
Yeah. The interesting thing about, so everybody's, obsessed with intersectionality, which I think in theory is great, right? Like everybody should be given the opportunity to speak. But that's not what happened on the progressive left. Not everybody is given an equal voice, right? Whoever's the most oppressed is given, so much to say, like, we had the panel in Mardi Gras, and we had a trans woman post-op who, presents female, who only dates women.
Yeah. There's some buy-in there. There's some buy-in for this trans woman. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And she was Asian, and she was an Aboriginal, from Australia.
Okay.
And even she got for being on the panel.
Why?
Why wasn't there a black person? Why wasn't there a disabled person?
What?
Literally comments that we got. And we're like, there's only room for 3 people on the stage. Like, this is like, They literally spent like $10,000 just to fly a few of us out here. Like, we don't have this money. They want to complain. That's literally what they want. Nothing is woke enough for them. They want to bitch. They want to complain. They want to seem like they're morally superior, for being as inclusive as possible, which is why all of them are queer and pansexual. LGBT acceptance is down by like 15% or something like that.
You brought that up in a video, right?
Years.
And the first time in how many years?
Like 15 years or 10 years or something, like something crazy, which makes sense because over the last 5 years, everything became super offensive to everybody, and nobody could even ask questions about LGBT people anymore without worrying about being offended.
Well, it was like under Barack Obama, toward the end there, Black Lives Matter, and you had Ferguson in Baltimore, and then Americans said that race relations were the most strained in their lifetime, and actually now under super racist Donald Trump, both black and white Americans say that race relations are better than 4 years ago.
I think that makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense.
And I wonder if that's the same thing, because it went from everyone who didn't vote for Obama was racist, right, to if you didn't vote for Hillary Clinton, you're sexist. And so then it became the gender war as opposed to the race war with identity politics.
Yeah. No, I get that. Like the same thing. I think a good comparison would be the Me Too movement. As good as it is for women, it's also hurting women because people are afraid to hire women.
Yeah.
and they're worried about, what if I say the wrong thing? Am I going to get Me Too'd? So I think the line is being crossed in multiple ways, and I think that everybody, hopefully, I want to believe that everybody means well, but it's not coming. Maybe it's not coming across that way, or it's not being seen that way.
I think most people mean well, and then I think there are some people who are have a little more sinister motives. Not many, but there are people who sometimes misinform or manipulate the general masses who mean well. So I think probably a lot of LGBTQ, whatever acronym we want to use this day, people mean well, and they're being told that everyone hates them, and so they become angry.
They think that everybody hates them because words like sexist and transphobic and bigot and TERF are being so overly blown at this point. Like, it's so...
Yeah.
Like they're using it to mean literally, like
You've been called a TERF. So explain that to people who don't know. J.K. Rowling and yourself, you get to carry that trophy.
Yeah, I have something in common with the Queen. Yes. We've both been called the TERF. And that name sticks with you, and that's it.
What is that for people who, because a lot of people don't know because it's silly.
Right. A TERF stands for, it's an acronym, stands for Trans Exclusionary Radical Feminism. And in some ways, I am a TERF. Because feminism doesn't always include trans women.
Right.
Like, not every conversation has to involve them. But that shouldn't be called, that shouldn't be a bad thing. That's just recognizing, listen, sometimes you're not involved in this conversation. Like, trans women don't experience periods. They don't know what it's going to be. They shouldn't be in the conversation with abortion rights or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, there's some certain things where they don't belong in those spaces, right?
Right. Or certainly belong in those spaces presenting a woman's point of view.
Exactly. That's my point. Right. Yeah. Exactly. Like, I'll always treat a trans woman as a woman, but the line is drawn when it comes to sex, like sex advantages, maybe is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Women in sports, or people that are taking advantage of the self-identification system. I get called TERF for that because I denounced men I think they're men. Or maybe they are trans women. Who knows? There could be crazy trans people out there too, right? It's,
could be.
My friend Rose of Dawn says stupidity is intersectional. There's bad people in all walks of life, and but in this case, I think the people that are abusing the self-ID laws. I believe it was in the UK and in Canada, and I think there was one case in the United States where they're in prison for like sexual assault crimes or rape crimes or even murder. Yeah. And they go on HRT, or they just claim, to be trans women, and they get transferred to a women's prison. Yeah. And like no.
But these things do happen. So I guess I would ask you this. Do you think that the left sort of left you, or did you leave them? Do you think that there was always a strain of this and maybe you weren't as aware of it, or do you really think that it changed in the last few years and they left you behind?
Both. I think that they've changed dramatically, but I also think it's a bit of a generation gap. Mm-hmm. I'm in my 30s, and I noticed that most people in their 30s agree with me, and most people in their 20s agree with the crazy progressive left, as I call them. And I think it also has to do with, believe it or not, it's going to sound like super hippie, but lack of self-love. These people are obsessed with validating themselves in every way possible, mm-hmm. right? They want to be like sexually open and sexually fluid, and everybody is valid and everybody's welcome everywhere. And it's like sometimes that's not the best idea, right. And it's okay to put your foot down and be like, we're different. That doesn't mean you're less than, but it means we're different. We have different problems and different issues, and like there should still be men's rights, like men's rights activists, and there's still men's issues, and there's still women privilege. It's okay to recognize all of those things, and not focus on trying to There's a difference between bringing everybody up and together, and like saying everybody is welcome and everybody like has a voice, but that's not the way they're positioning it. They're positioning it as this person, this black trans woman is super oppressed, and this trans woman and this lesbian, well, not even lesbian, they never include lesbians, and this bisexual gay, or this gay guy or queer person, like they have all the rights to speak, and they need to be at the top, and da da da.
And you should shut up and listen because you're not black. And you should shut up and listen. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, that's how it is, and it's like that's the worst way. It's the worst. I feel okay. Put it this way: it's gotten to the point where literally, I'm not even kidding, I'm in Sydney. It's a very progressive, LGBT-friendly city. I felt so uncomfortable at the Pride Parade because I was scared that like a young kid or an older trans person or whatever was going to come up to me and like have at it. Like, honestly. And yes.
Because they would recognize you, or just because they identified that you were the only biological female there?
Me.
Oh, okay.
No, because that has nothing to do with being biological female. Because I was because they would recognize me and be like, you're a TERF, like you deserve to die or something. It's no longer an actual safe space. Like if you truly mean safe space, you give people the opportunity to talk about their experiences. Yeah. And how they truly feel without worrying about other people's feelings, because they get to do that all the time. Yeah. So why should I?
Where you said that the sort of woke progressive left, and I want to delineate between those and people who are sort of moderate Democrats, but the left today, mm-hmm. that it's become a haven for, and you use the word mentally unstable people. Yes. With YouTube, those are fighting words because that cannot be applied to anyone, with their community guidelines who even happens to be trans, even if you're not saying they're mentally unstable because they're trans, but they're just mentally unstable and happen to be trans. So can you sort of describe what you meant as far as, what do you mean by mentally unstable people now sort of taking over the woke left?
Well, everybody's valid, right? That's the thing right now. No matter what you feel, that's the perfect place for somebody that needs help that won't get it.
And that's the difference between mental instability that is outwardly aimed, your ires at other people where you are aggressive and directly affecting other people's lives. I think when you delineate between those two.
Yeah, I wouldn't know how to categorize that in like the psychological sense, but I agree with you. Yeah, there's a difference. When you get to the point where literally 60-year-old women are having conversations in a basement in the UK about female rights and how these new laws are going to affect them. Mm-hmm. And these crazy trans activists, again, I say trans activists as like a broad term, people that a lot of them are straight and they're just like trans women are women, da, 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 da. You can't say anything else. They're literally banging on the windows, like and like harassing, like physically harassing people outside. Like there's videos on YouTube you can watch. Like somebody like punched a 60-year-old woman, like a man, like a 20-year-old man punching a 60-year-old woman because she wanted to talk to other females about like what to expect with these new gender ID laws or whatever.
Like I'm sure you've heard of walk away and Blexit with like black sort of Democrats. And do you think we're going to see something similar to that on a large scale with other LGBT people? Like, do you feel that there's a groundswell of more people out there like you who are intimidated into silence?
I think we had Brandon, who's the gay guy. We have Blair, who's the trans woman, and now we have me, who's the lesbian. I think we just need a bisexual person that's like, I am done with this bullshit. I am also joining this movement. Like that way, there's like 4 pillars. Honestly, like I think we need that because there's so many people that agree. Like I get messages on Instagram, not on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, email every day because it's private. Every single day, hundreds every day. Saying that, like, thank you so much for standing up for us. Like, we don't have a voice. We're terrified to say anything because we're going to be labeled a bigot and people are going to hate us. And some people work for not-for-profits, for LGBT not-for-profits, and they don't agree with what they're doing with, gender.
Keep us updated because obviously we want what's best for you and stay safe out there. This can be rough.
Yeah, thank you so much, Stephen.
Thank you,
and thank
Ariel.
You everybody else who's there. I don't know who else is there.
Thank you.
It's just a bunch of creepy men. It's the Patreon.
Don't worry about it.
The 2 women who work here, one of them is
They're not here.
One of them is helping someone who just had surgery, and the other one is at Disney World. So we just have 2 guys in here right now. Thank you so much, Ariel. We will see everyone else tomorrow.